Welcome to the English Epics channel. Usually I come home from work earlier than Tina, so I had plenty of time to prepare. Naturally, once I was ready, I had to kill some time until she returned home. As soon as I heard the garage door open, I took one last look at myself in the bathroom mirror, adjusted my tie, and headed downstairs. I couldn't have asked for a better situation. Tina was standing at the bottom of the stairs, looking at me as I descended. She noticed the suit and tie and said, "I didn't know we were going somewhere tonight." "We're not. If we're not going anywhere, why are you dressed like that?" "Because I'm going out." "What's going on, Billy?" "I have a date." "I'd love to chat, but I'm running late." "I'm not sure when I'll be back, so don't wait up for me." "You have a date." "With who?" By this point, I was already at the front door. As I opened it, I heard "one damn minute." "William, we need to." And I stepped outside, closing the door before I could hear the rest of what she had to say. Fortunately, the extended cab pickup didn't fit in the garage, which reduced the time she had to reach me. Besides, I think she was caught off guard and in shock from what was happening, which slowed her down a bit. By the time she stepped outside yelling, "Damn it, Billy, get your ass back here!" I was already in the truck with the engine running. I just smiled as I backed out of the driveway, turned left, and headed toward the condominium where my date for the evening lived. I suppose a little backstory is needed here. I met Tina Marie Clausen during my senior year at Metropolitan State University. My major was business management, and the course I was taking focused on analyzing managerial decisions. The class was full, and the only available seat was next to me. The professor entered the room at the same time as a young woman who made her way to the only empty seat. I know that most people, at least the ones I know, think that love at first sight is just a figure of speech, that such a thing doesn't exist. But my first glance at her made me think she's the one. I hadn't even said a word to her yet, but I was already wondering if I had enough money to buy her an engagement ring. She sat down, looked at me, and said, "Good morning." This is it, I thought. But before I could respond, Bivens called the class to order. I don't think I heard half of what he said during that session because the dark-haired beauty sitting next to me had captured nearly all of my attention. When the class ended, I followed the girl closely, and thanks to Bivens's roll call, I knew her name was Tina. Once in the hallway, I tapped her on the shoulder to get her attention, and when she turned to face me, I said, "Hi, I'm Bill Dalton. I know this should happen under more romantic circumstances, but I don't want to waste any time. Will you marry me?" She laughed and replied, "I'm not sure if I'll say yes or no, but I might consider you and agree to a date if I'm asked properly. Are you free tonight?" "As it happens, I am. How about having dinner with me this evening?" "I think I'd like that." We found out that we both finished our classes at 11:45, so we agreed to meet in the student cafeteria for lunch. Over lunch, I learned that the reason I had never seen her on campus before was that she had been attending a local college, and this was her first semester at Metro. We exchanged information, and I learned that she was an only child and that both her parents worked. She was majoring in accounting, aiming to become a certified public accountant, CPA. Her favorite color was blue, and she enjoyed almost all kinds of music, except for what she referred to as the noise called rap. She refused to acknowledge it as music. She found out that I was also an only child and was majoring in business management to prepare myself to take over the family business when my father finally decided to retire. I didn't have a favorite color, but I agreed with her opinion about rap. We agreed that I would pick her up at 6, and then we both went to our afternoon classes. Our date went well, although she laughed at me quite a bit. Mostly, I think, because she didn't take me seriously when I asked her ring size and what kind of engagement ring she would like. I also asked her what she would want from a wedding and whether we should wait until we both finished school before tying the knot. As I was driving her home, I told her I was completely serious. When I first saw you, I immediately knew you were the one I was meant to be with. Let's face it, fate, karma, or whoever's in charge made sure you attended the same class as me, and that the only empty seat in the room was right next to mine. We're meant to be together, and you need to accept that. You're being ridiculous. We barely know each other. That's why we need to keep seeing each other so you can learn everything you need to know about me. I've already told my parents I've met their future daughter-in-law and they can't wait to meet you. How about having dinner with them this Friday? I don't think so. You're moving a little too fast for me. That's because I know we're meant to be together, and I want to continue building our life together. Well, you might be sure, but I'm not. Until I get to know you a hell of a lot better, I'm not agreeing to anything. You're charming, and I like your determination, but I'm not the type to rush into things. I'm going to explore what else is out there before making any big decisions. I wasn't pleased to hear that, but I knew, absolutely knew, that we were destined to be together. So I wasn't about to give up. Over the next 3 months, probably every third time I asked Tina out, she'd apologize and tell me she already had plans for that day or evening. As the Christmas break approached, I decided to put everything involving Tina on hold until the new year. It wasn't that I'd lost interest. It was more a matter of self-preservation. I knew Tina was seeing other guys, but I'd never seen her with one, and I was damn sure I didn't want to. I thought that if I asked her to go with me to a party at Joe's and she told me she already had a date that evening, I could still go to the party, but she would avoid it, knowing I'd be there. Was this an example of strange thinking? Hell no. It was an example of dumb thinking. As if she wouldn't go to the party anyway, a college student with a GPA of 3.78, and I was being that foolish. My fraternity was hosting a party, and I asked Tina to go with me, but she told me she already had a date that evening. I went alone, and about 40 minutes after the party started, Tina arrived with Jake Cochran. It was bad enough seeing her on the arm of someone else, but Jake Cochran. You couldn't find a more insufferable jerk even if you scoured the entire world. I couldn't take it. I had to leave 5 minutes after they arrived. I noticed Tina watching me as I walked out. I decided to skip all the holiday parties for the rest of the year. It wasn't meant to happen. My Uncle Paul and Aunt Peggy came to visit me, and with them was my cousin Rachel. They convinced me to take Rachel to a party at my college dorm. I didn't want to. I really didn't want to. But how can you resist when your mom and dad, along with your aunt and uncle, are all pressuring you? On the way to the party, Rachel asked me why I was so reluctant. Are you embarrassed to be seen with me? Good heavens, no. You're really hot, and you know it. Then I explained what was going on. So if she's there, point her out to me. She doesn't know I'm your cousin, so I'll hang on to you and see if we can make her jealous. I think she won't care at all. It doesn't hurt to try. Can you guess? Not only was Tina at the party, but she was looking right at us as we entered the room. Rachel heard my sharp intake of breath and immediately understood. Where is she? Straight ahead, by the wall, in the blue dress. Rachel glanced at me, flashed a dazzling smile, and squeezed my arm tightly. Ignoring Tina, I introduced Rachel to my fraternity brothers and their girlfriends. About 20 minutes after we arrived, Tina approached us and said, "Hi, Bill. Introduce me to your friend." I introduced them to each other, and then Tina shocked me by asking Rachel, "Are you trying to steal my man?" Rachel laughed and said, "If you were your man, darling, he'd be here with you, not with me. Come on, sweetheart, show me around." And she led us away from Tina. It was a fun party, and we had a great time. Rachel drew a lot of attention to herself. A few of my fraternity brothers, knowing how I felt about Tina, asked me if there was anything going on between Rachel and me. I told them no and explained that she was just my date for the party. Essentially, I gave them the green light to ask her out. Before we left, I needed to use the bathroom, and when I came out, I found Tina waiting for me. I meant it, you know. Meant what? That you're my man. If you'd asked me, I would have been at this party with you. I didn't ask you because the last 3 times I invited you on a date, you turned me down, saying you already had plans. I got tired of hearing no, so I stopped asking. Sorry, but I need to find my date. And I walked away from her. On the way home, Rachel said, Your fraternity brothers are a bunch of backstabbing jerks. Why do you say that? Even though I was your date, they kept hitting on me. They're not jerks. They know how hung up I am on Tina. And they asked me if there was anything going on between you and me. When I said no, they asked if I'd mind if they tried their luck, and I told them to go for it. I wish I'd known that earlier. There are a couple of them I would have said yes to. I turned the car around, and she asked me what I was doing. Taking you back to the party to see if those guys are still there. Once we were back, I let her go and headed down to the game room to play pool while she mingled. Eventually, she came down, got me, and said she was ready to leave. One of the guys she would have said yes to was Ed Catron, and they ended up getting married. The next morning, Tina called me and asked if I would meet her for lunch at the village pub. Curiosity made me say yes. She was already there, sitting in a booth when I arrived. I sat across from her, and before I could say a word, Tina said, "I know what I want for Christmas." "What?" "An engagement ring. You once asked me my ring size. I don't know, but when we leave here, we can go to Zales and find out. I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth. But where did this sudden change come from? I've dated enough guys to make comparisons, and you came out on top." "Seriously? That, and the trick you pulled with your cousin, made me realize I could lose you to someone else." "How did you find out she's my cousin?" "She told me." "She told you." "How did that happen?" "She noticed me nervously glancing in your direction and figured I was upset seeing you there with her. So she came up to me and told me not to worry that she was your cousin, not someone trying to steal my man. Just to clarify, I wasn't pulling. "A trick," I said, and explained how I didn't even want to go to the party because I might see her there with a date, and how everyone pressured me into taking Rachel. Well, whatever it was, it worked. It really did work. 6 weeks after my graduation, we got married. Tina still had another year before earning her degree, and I wanted to wait until she finished school. But she didn't want to wait. She insisted, and I gave in. I wanted a simple civil ceremony, but our parents wouldn't hear of it. So we ended up having a full-scale wedding, and the next 7 years were some of the happiest of my life. Tina and I were still acting like we were in our honeymoon phase, and then a snake slithered into our garden. His name was Darren Goodman, had transferred to Tina's office from the company's branch in Cleveland. He decided that Tina should be with him and started pursuing her. Maybe it was the so-called 7-year itch, but whatever the reason, Tina accepted his advances. At first, it was lunches together, then after-work drinks. What Tina forgot was that how Thomas, one of my college classmates, worked at the same place as her, and since she didn't seem to care whether her co-workers knew what she was doing, Hal was able to learn quite a bit about her activities. Hal called me and told me what Tina had been up to. So far, everyone agreed that things hadn't progressed, beyond hand-holding and kisses. The lunches weren't long enough for anything to happen, and after a few drinks and some dancing when they socialized with colleagues after work, they didn't leave together. When I put all of this together and added the fact that she was never late coming home, I realized Goodman hadn't yet managed to get her into bed. That changed the day Hal called me. He'd overheard them talking about a date on Saturday, and from what he heard, they planned to end the evening in a hotel room. One of the things Hal overheard Tina say was that she intended to come home and hit me with it, flat out tell me that she was planning to start dating another man. I told my dad I needed to leave a little early to deal with a personal matter. On my way out, I stopped by accounting and asked Angela Harding for a favor. "What do you need, Billy, sweetheart?" "I need a date for dinner and dancing tonight." Wow. Mr. Virtuous is taking a break from his wifey. "Hold your horses." I explained the situation to Angie, and she was shocked that Tina would do something like that. I had no doubt Angie would jump at the chance to go on a date with me. At the first company Christmas party I attended with Tina, I found out that Tina and Angie knew each other and didn't get along. Knowing I planned to make sure Tina heard all about the date, Angie agreed. When I picked up Angie, I mentally scolded myself for not handling things differently. I should have waited until Tina actually cheated on me with Goodman. Then I'd be justified. at least in my own mind, in having revenge sex with Angie. I had always known she was a pretty girl, but in her little black dress and heels, she was absolutely stunning. She smiled and said, "Thanks. For what?" "For the compliment your eyes just gave me." I'm not sure, but I think I blushed. I offered her my arm, and we headed toward my pickup truck. We had dinner at Duke's Steakhouse, and after the meal, we went to the Alhambra Hall to dance. I chose both places because Tina had good friends who worked there, and I was confident that one or more of them would call Tina before I even got home. During the slow dances, Angie pressed herself against me and just smiled, intentionally brushing against my arousal. She was clearly enjoying herself, knowing she was turning me on and that Tina would hear about it. It was obvious to me that Angie intended to get me into her bed before the night was over. Not because of my masculine charm, but because she undoubtedly wanted to tell Tina all about it. And while Angie was sure she had me, I was just as certain that wasn't going to happen. Did I want it to happen? Hell yes, but cheating on my wife just wasn't in my rule book. I walked her to her front door and thanked her for a wonderful evening. She grabbed my head and gave me one hell of a passionate kiss, then invited me in. I think I shocked her when I said no. We both know what will happen if I do, and tonight isn't about that. I was up front with you about what this was all about, and you agreed to help me make it happen. Don't think for a second that I don't want to come inside because we both know I really do. Thank you for helping me. I kissed her on the cheek, turned around, and walked back to my pickup truck. I drove to the Waffle House, had some coffee, and read the newspaper until 4:00, then went home. I got home at 4:20 in the morning, expecting Tina to be asleep in bed when I got there, but she wasn't. She was awake, sitting on the couch in the living room and reading a book as I walked in. I simply smiled at her, walked past, and headed upstairs to our bedroom. I had just taken off my jacket and was hanging it up when Tina walked into the room. "I can smell her perfume on you. Who is she?" "I'd assume at least one of your friends has already called and told you. 2 of them, but they didn't know who the woman was. You know her. Angela Harding." "That pig? You threw our marriage in the trash. For that pig?" "Oh, come on, Tina. No need to be so dramatic. Let me ask you something. What did you feel when I walked out the door? Tell me, Tina. I really want to know." She just stared at me. The anger on her face was clear, but somehow she managed to hold herself back. "Maybe you've been asking yourself why I went out with another woman, wondering why you weren't enough for me, asking yourself what you did wrong, what you did to push me away." Finally, she reached her breaking point and couldn't hold back anymore. "How could you? 7 years. 7 years that I thought were damn good years, and you threw it all away just to roll around in the hay with that adulteress." I smiled at her and said, "Go on, you're on a roll now." "What the hell is wrong with you, William? You're treating this like it's some kind of joke." "Well, I do find some humor in the situation. Let me see if I've got this straight. You're mad because I went on a date with another woman. So mad, in fact, that you're considering divorce. Is that about right?" She shook her head in disbelief at my attitude. "And one more question for you. What makes Angie an adulteress?" "Oh, really? And what else would you call a woman who dates a married man?" "That brings up another question. What would you call a married woman who dates a man who isn't her husband?" "An adulteress. An unfaithful adulteress." "Thank you for clarifying that for me. I wasn't entirely sure what to call you. Are you saying I'm an adulteress? Just calling it like I see it? You're a damn jerk. How dare you call me an adulteress? Hey, back off. I'm just calling you what you are, according to your own words. A married woman who dates a man who isn't her husband. You're a married woman, and you're dating Darren Goodman. Therefore, by your own definition, you're an adulteress." Her face turned pale, and I saw the expression that clearly read, "How much does he know?" I smiled and said, "Here's something for you to think about. Remember how you felt when I walked out of here last night, and play that feeling over in your head until you see it from the other side. That's how you intended to make me feel when you went on your date with Goodman tonight. You know, the date. That's supposed to end in a motel room. But there's one thing that puzzles me. I can't seem to remember what I ever did to make you think I'd just stand there and take it when you told me you were planning to date another man. For the life of me, I can't recall what made you think I'd be so weak as to say, "Yes, dear, have a good time." I would have thought you knew me well enough to understand that when Goodman came to pick you up, I beat the crap out of him. Of course, that won't happen now because you'll undoubtedly call him and tell him not to pick you up, and that you'll meet him somewhere instead. Anyway, it's been a long night, and I need to get some sleep. I left her standing there in shock, went to the guest bedroom, and went to sleep. I half expected her to follow me and want to talk, but she didn't. When I woke up and went downstairs, she was asleep on the couch. Why she chose the couch instead of our bedroom, I wasn't about to ask. I went to the kitchen and, as quietly as possible so as not to wake her, made some coffee. Once it was ready, I poured myself a cup, went out to the patio, and sipped my coffee, while thinking about what to do next. Divorce? Maybe, but that was a last resort. I truly loved this foolish woman and really didn't want to let her go. Love or not, if she had already slept with Goodman, she'd be history. But based on everything hell had learned, it was clear that hadn't happened yet. What to do? What to do? In the end, I figured it would depend on Tina. If she didn't want to stay with me, there was really nothing I could do about it. If she went on that date with Goodman, it would be the end of us. I had been sitting there for about 10 minutes when she came out with a cup of coffee in her hand and sat down across from me. She took a sip and then said, "What would you like for dinner tonight? I'm not really in the mood to cook, so I'll probably grab something somewhere." "No, I'm asking what you'd like me to cook for you for dinner. I thought you had a hot date tonight." Not anymore. I looked up for my coffee, and she said this morning I had a wake-up call. I woke up realizing that I was about to throw away a damn good marriage with a great guy for a fling with someone who isn't even close to being in my husband's league. There's really no excuse for my actions. I let a bunch of compliments and flattery go to my head. I used to get the same compliments and flattery from my husband, but at some point I convinced myself that he was only saying those things because he had to. It was part of his job description. Coming from someone else, it felt like validation that I was still a desirable woman. Luckily for me, or at least I hope it's lucky for me, the only thing that ever happened was a few kisses and some hand-holding. Now, because of my stupidity, I'm determined to put in the extra effort to convince my suspicious and doubtful husband that I've pulled my head out of my ass well. I'm not going to say you're facing an impossible task, but I will say you've got a pretty tough job ahead of you. Then I'd better get started. Want to head back inside and work up an appetite before I take you out for breakfast? "I'd love to," I said, standing up to follow her into the house. I thought that was a good sign. Clearly, she really wanted to stay with me. Maybe, just maybe, we could make this work after all. Thank you for listening until the end. See you in the next episode of English Epics. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.